This is a video on interaction types for the Human-Centered Design course. The different kinds of interaction types are much more broadly defined than you may have experienced or that your potential users have experienced. So the purpose of this video is to show you the broader range so that when you're designing an interactive system, you have an understanding of what's possible rather than just what you've experienced. So what is an interaction type? An interaction type describes a convention for a user to interact with an application or a system. And I guess that means it's a way of interacting. It's probably easier to understand what this is if you look at what the types are. In the book on interaction design by Sharp, Rogers, and Priest, they define 4 types of interaction, and they're pretty comprehensive. The 4 types are listed here. We'll go over them in more detail, but they are instructing, conversing, manipulating, and exploring. Instructing is probably the earliest type of interaction with a computer, and this is where the user issues instructions to a system. The early way of doing this was by using your keyboard to type commands into a window, usually a terminal window or command window. It's actually called a command window. More recently, the operating systems that we have don't use a command style instruction. They use menus and touching and icons, and that's shown in the second image there. And then even more recently, we've begun to see instruction types where you can speak aloud your commands. And this is where you might say, Alexa, what time is it? Or Alexa, set a timer. And then in addition to speaking, we have gesturing. And gesturing is where you can move your hands and the computer system can sense where your hands are and what shape they're in, and use that information to allow you to change things that you see on the screen. So you might be able to make a box bigger or move a line. And finally, pressing buttons. It's very similar to the touching icons, except some interactive systems have physical buttons. And that's very similar to the touching, except you issue the command by pushing a button. The second type of interaction is called conversing, and this is where users have a dialogue with the system. We're most familiar with this in an interactive system that is a chat. We usually chat to our friends, so we're very familiar with that on the mobile phone, but we've begun to see conversing style interaction where you chat with a chatbot or a help desk. And this is where you have questions and replying. It's not exactly the same as an instruction. You might type in a question, but you expect there to be a dialogue in return rather than just following the instructions. On the right-hand side is an image of a car. There's a lot of dialogue systems being developed for interacting with systems on your car so that you can keep your hands on the steering wheel and your eyes on the road. And these rely on speech input and speech output. Manipulating is the third kind of interaction type, and this is where users interact with objects in a physical or virtual space by manipulating them. On the left-hand side, we see a tabletop system where there's objects on top of the tabletop, and you can place them, you can hold them, you can rotate them, and by moving them around, you're changing the state of the system or the state of the play if it's a game. And on the right-hand side is an Osmo. And an Osmo is an app on an iPad that uses a mirror over the camera at the top of the iPad, and that mirror can take the image of what's on the table in front of the iPad, translate that into input into the system so that the person using the system can move the physical objects in front of the iPad, and that will change the input to the app on the iPad. And finally, exploring. Exploring is where users move through a virtual environment or a physical space. The two kinds that we're most familiar with are virtual reality on the left and augmented reality on the right. In virtual reality, you're immersed in the virtual world, and by moving your head, moving your eye gaze, moving your hands, and often moving your body, you can explore and move around the virtual space. And in the right-hand side, the augmented reality application you're seeing there is called Pokemon Go, and that's where you can see the world in front of you through the camera on your mobile phone, but you have superimposed on that objects in that space that you can interact with and explore that space with them. So this completes the module on interaction types, and next we'll look at interaction modalities.